Passion Harvest. Hello, passionate listeners. I'm so excited with our guest today, Chris James Melchizedek, or CJ for short. This is going to be an awesome episode and a subject that I'm very passionate about. CJ's life is intimately wound together with his experiences of chronic illness. At age 14, he developed fibro-myalgia and chronic fatigue, and the next 20 years taught him deeply about full spectrum healing and the reality of the life force which exists inside our body. CJ has worked as a natural therapist, and he is also a professional musician and writer of spiritual science fiction. Chronic illness led CJ or Chris to discovering the energy lines. I'm fascinated about this. I'm so excited, which helped him heal. The energy lines provided Chris insight into the shift of the ages. This is his story and this is his passion. CJ, welcome to Passion Harvest.
Thank you, Louisa. It's great to be here.
I'm so excited, but this is going to be, I'm just feeling like it's going to be an awesome episode. But sequentially, I think it's always good to sort of start from the beginning, but chronic fatigue and your chronic illness. Would you mind just giving a background about that to the audience?
Yeah, sure. So from a very young age, I developed a chronic illness. It started at 14. And so, and the phenomenon of having a chronic illness is actually a remarkably initiating experience, in that you have to let go of cultural conditioning and what society tells you should be doing and how you should be, and come to terms with what's actually going on in your body. And so this was a process that began for me at a very young age, and what it eventually led to was a deep level of acceptance, which then led to like the full spectrum healing, or adopting that as a life path.
And that's interesting. I mean, I hear the term full spectrum healing all the time. Do you mind just explaining what that terminology means?
Yeah, well, to me, other people might have other definitions, but to me, it's when you're looking at the physical aspect of your life. Like, if I reflect on from my current circumstances, like the physical aspect is the exercise routines I do, and the stretching and the qigong and things like that. And then there's the mental side, which is about reframing old concepts of yourself, and also of how reality works, and beliefs you've made about yourself through trauma and things like that, which leads to the emotional stuff, which is about learning to develop balanced emotional relationships. But also, a thing that's very important with chronic illnesses is living in a stress-free environment, and having people around you who are positive. And then, as well as that, there's the spiritual side as well. Over time, I've ended up growing to adopt all of those different things into being focuses within myself, because the chronic condition is so deep that the only way to meet it on its own terms, as it were, is to have a multifaceted long-term approach.
And would you say that you're healing from it, or you have healed, or you're in the process of healing?
Totally. I'm in the process of healing, but yeah, I'm in a really good place with it at this point in my life, because I don't have a sense of futility about it or chaos about it. I more have a sense of resolve and clarity with it, and I'm taking very consistent small steps in a positive direction. And that took a long time to to be able to like, I've been really, really engaging with it and doing my best to overcome it since for nearly 20 years. But it took until only a few years ago to actually realize what my strategies were for the recuperation process.
Amazing. Just as you said that, I thought maybe one day you're going to sort of put some sort of plan together to potentially help others in similar situations.
Yeah, well, that's already begun.
I'm one step ahead of you.
Yeah, I just put those videos out the other day. That was some of the links I sent you. So there's videos on YouTube under my name called What is Chronic Illness? And I've put five videos up of all the things I've learned over the years about it, just to share with people.
That's great. And anyone that's listening or watching, I'll have all the links in the show notes. I was just thinking also about chronic fatigue. You don't look sick, right? So it's a very internal. So you're not sick, you're not vomiting, but at the same time, you've got this debilitating condition.
Yeah, it manifests differently, and like at the moment too, like I'm feeling particularly good and particularly grounded, and and I also made sure that I got enough rest and everything for today. But it's different for everyone. And where it really hits for me is like it's taken so long to learn this, but as soon as I start trying to work, it like my body just gets so stressed, and all my muscles get so sore, and I just don't have any energy to give. And not only that, the energy I do have gets depleted very fast. As soon as stress is put onto me, that's when it really manifests. So that's why I've ended up in a position still where I can't work. Yeah.
Well, I'm so happy you're here talking to me today.
Yeah, it's going to be a good year, I feel, for me, like just starting to slowly share again. And like I'm in a different phase now to when I wrote that article in Living Now, which was almost 10 years ago now.
Incredible article, by the way. I'll put that link in as well. So I'm fascinated to hear about the energy lines.
Yeah. So there's probably, I have to preamble this with saying there's a negative side to this and a positive. And I think the negative side of this comes in my relationship to them. And that's that I haven't, since shortly after that time I wrote it, I haven't engaged with them much and used them a whole lot. And there is a reason for that. Which I won't go into it all now, but
okay.
And then the positive side is that I do have a continuing relationship with them that never goes away, and also that I have a new perspective on them that finally gets to connect them and contextualize them in relationship to the ley lines of the earth. Because I constantly get contacted about this article in the context of earth ley lines, which the energy lines are not, but they are related to.
So what's the difference between ley lines and energy lines?
There's a huge difference.
Okay.
And one of the simplest ways to think about that is just the scale, because ley lines are the meridian lines of the earth, So are you familiar with the meridians in the body?
Yes. So, and I think probably the audience might be familiar with like acupuncture or...
Yeah. So in acupuncture, you've got all these different meridian lines. And so if you look at the size of a human compared to the size of, say, New South Wales or Australia, the earth meridians are vast. They're huge. They're kind of like, they're very big. And so they're earth-centric. they belong to the earth, for the earth. They're a part of the earth, and the way that the energy flows through it. Whereas the energy lines, they're a part of human to earth interconnectivity and a part of the human story. And they're about how that the earth energy, which is conducted through those ley lines, is actually conducted to us. So the energy lines are on a much smaller scale.
Okay. I wasn't expecting that answer, but that's very interesting. So, because everyone has different terminologies for these things. But so
for sure.
Okay, I'm just putting this in layman's terms, but the energy lines are almost like little veins that come up from the ley lines that connect to humans on the earth.
Yeah, you could say that for sure. Yeah. And a friend of mine who was the person who actually originally introduced this to me, I'm not going to say who they are or anything, they're not the kind of person, but they said ley lines are like highways and energy lines are like spider webs.
Okay, great way to explain it. So you connected with the energy lines in order to do some healing on you.
Yeah.
Full spectrum healing.
Totally. Well, back when I was connecting with them around the time of that article, they were remarkably healing. Like, you could even, in a way, I was addicted to them. It was like every day. They were just so grounding, so consolidating, so healing. Made me feel things in my body consciousness I'd never felt before. Like, just felt so connected to my body, so connected to the earth, so content and happy. Connected to the land around me and everything like that.
So I guess my next question is, do you have to go into nature to connect with these energy lines, or are they all around us?
They're absolutely everywhere, but it's hard to feel them when you're in the domestic context, e.g. inside a house, in a building. It's much easier to feel them outside, and then it's much easier again to feel them on rocks, because the magnetic, I think I wrote about this in the article, the magnetic currents within the rocks amplifies the inherent magnetism that's there and makes them easier to find.
That's so interesting. So when you mentioned you were going on a daily basis, did you go out to some rocks?
Yeah, at that time I lived on a headland, and I was really lucky. The end of that headland just had all of these rocks, which was right next to the ocean. So yeah, I used to go there a lot. And
I'm assuming they were sandstone?
No, actually,
Oh.
this area, I'm not. It's kind of that. I don't know much about geology, but it's kind of that brittle rock that can get quite sharp at times. There's kind of sharp shards and brittle bits. We have sandstone inland from here, but not on the coast.
Okay.
It's kind of grey, a dull grey color.
Like a slate.
Yeah, it's like slate. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you'd go out to these rocks, and can I ask how you connected with the energy lines, or?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'll say it for practical concerns is the easiest ones to find are you kind of find these places on the earth where it's almost like you're sitting on a seat, and like on the coast, it's great if you've got like there's the solitary islands around here. So you find these places where it feels like you're sitting on a seat and you're looking out at an island, and you kind of feel almost like the island's pulling you out. Some people talk about feeling, if they're close to a cliff or something, like they're feeling like they're getting pulled over. But that's a kind of energy line that's quite easy to find, that has the forward moving energy in it. And you can also find places where that are similar like that, where you're on rocks but you're facing a mountain. in the distance, like say there's a big beautiful mountain or a sacred kind of place in the area that you know about, you might find if you turn around and look at it when you're on the rocks that there's an energy line there. So they're the obvious and most easy ones to find. And also, if you go somewhere that's close to the edge of somewhere on rocks, you will find ones that have a downward energy. So you kind of feel like you're getting, like almost like you're sitting up the top. Say you're sitting on a 10-meter rock shelf, and you're meditating there. You feel like you're getting pulled down the bottom, or almost like you're at the bottom and the top at the same time. That's another common, easy to find one. And what the meditative focus is important. Like if you think that if you feel like you might have found one, what you want to do is meditate and drop into it. And it's like you're dropping in to within yourself and to inside the earth, dropping down into the earth, and that'll increase the gravity it's exerting on you and make it go into you more if you do that.
So your technique is sitting down on the rock?
Yeah, for sure.
Closing your eyes. But what you mentioned about the seeing the islands in the distance that were pulling you, you're actually doing it with your mind's eye, not your physical eye. Is that correct? Or your eyes are open?
Yeah, in that context, your eyes are open, and what you're looking for is the subtle feeling that's being exerted towards your body, because you're going to look at that island and feel, if you tune into the subtlety of what's going on, you'll feel a pull in that direction. And so once you feel that subtle pull, then what you do is close your eyes and meditate deeper into it, and then that will increase the flow of the energy line in particular and make it sink into your body more.
It just reminds me, as you said this, and this is, I guess the other day I was at the beach, but on the rocks at the beach, and I wasn't meditating. I was actually sitting on the rocks looking, really happy state, beautiful, looking at the sunset. And there were big waves out in front of me. And for a moment, I almost felt that, it was like, but the waves were going up and down and flowing. And I felt that I was almost at one with the waves. And this only lasted for a couple of seconds, but it was just such an interconnectedness with my environment.
That's it. Yeah. So it's the energy lines give you that sense of union with the land around. They kind of conduct that to you. That's what's so good about them. And what I've found, like you might have even been on one the other day, I found with people who are inclined as we are into these kind of interests, like going on so many bushwalks with people, and they sit down, friends of mine, they sit straight down on them all the time. You go for a bushwalk somewhere, you go sit on some rocks, and they're sitting straight on top of the most prominent and powerful energy lines in that spot.
Interesting. I mean, look, our body, everything's made up of energy as well. So it's natural that we have the resonance and the awareness of the resonance of energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Having that feeling, for me, I can only talk about me personally. Obviously, I hadn't spoken to you before. Otherwise, I would have thought, oh my God, I'm connecting with the energy lines. But I guess I was invigorated. I guess I felt good. I was noticing the beauty and the flowing of the waves, but something just shifted for a moment, and I felt that shift.
Yeah, sure. It
doesn't have to be a major, oh my God, I'm filled with energy sort of experience.
Yeah, not at all. It's
subtle.
It can be subtle. Like I don't know personally whether you were just having a union experience independently, but in a way, or you were sitting directly on top of one, and that was a part of what made that happen. But whether or not you're directly sitting on top of, okay, I'll say about, because they call them lines, but they're actually points. So
Okay.
sometimes you will find them extending quite long ways along the ground, but you can usually find a particular point, and that point will be where it's most potent, and that's where you want to place yourself and sit down and do your meditation to find them.
I've got a few questions for you.
Yeah.
So I've only heard this with ley lines and the nodes, the energy points, where the energy lines cross, is that where the points are greater?
Then they're not really like that, these
Okay.
ones, the energy lines. Yeah, they don't really have they're mysterious. They don't behave like meridian lines.
Mm-hmm.
They're more like conductors of different. What they do is they conduct the earth energy that's present in any area into us in the different ways that our biological fields can experience.
Mm-hmm.
So and my understanding of that, based on the different ones that exist, is from Chinese medicine. I'm fortunate that I'm into that as a hobby, and that it has the language which can actually describe what they are. So for example, when you're looking at that island and that there's that energy pulling you out, that's actually related in Chinese medicine to particularly the organ function of the liver, and what the Chinese call the wood element.
Very interesting. So how do you locate them? I guess if I or someone else really, really wants to connect with the energy lines.
Yeah, look, and I wish I had a simple and easy and good answer, but it's like with a lot of this ancient stuff, like the best thing to do, and people ask me this in relation to this article a lot. They say, "Oh, is people often think I'm a business when they read that article and go, oh, can we come and learn from you and stuff?" I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't, but it would be perfect for me to be able to be there with whoever it was and show them when I'm present with them, so that they could find them, because that's the simplest way to do it, and the easiest. And then once that person is confident in that, they'll be able to do it and expand within it themselves. But I don't at the moment have that opportunity.
So you're using your intuition to find all these lines.
Totally, it's that part of us. It's totally not logical. It's totally intuitive and kind of, spiritual body level intelligence that allows us to find them.
This is just fascinating. I'm gonna try this myself. So how long do you have? There's no have to, but how long did you find that the healing worked quite well, or how long do you sit on the?
Well, it's variable. Like some of the days back when I was first doing them, you'd sit on. It's like like life is at its core. It's an adaptive process, so it's always different every day. And some days you just sit down on one and and it'd be like it's just going in and in, deeper and deeper and deeper, and you're sitting there for 45 minutes and you just can't believe it. But then other days I'd go and it'd be a very light connection to them on that day. So then what I'd do is I'd get more conceptual about it and go, oh, well, I'm going to do the 5 different core ones today, do a little bit of this one, a little bit of that one, because I want to fill up on it, so it's variable.
Interesting. So once you've found, just say that rock, if it was slate, the rock that you used to go to, is it always in the same spot, or do the energy lines move?
they're they're generally in the same spot. So if you find a really potent one, you can go back there.
Okay.
But you'll find that within like this area that I used to go to on the headland. So from the area of the rocks was quite large. It was probably say half a kilometre across and 20 meters long. So within that area, there was particular spots I'd go that I knew had particular energy lines that were very potent. But then if I wanted to find a particular one that was a different kind, I just have to walk, 30 meters away to find that.
So what are the different kinds for, or what are the purposes or the definitions of the different ones?
Yeah, sure. There's to be honest, there's quite a lot of them, and I don't know all of them, and but I do know like the core ones, and the core ones are there's pretty much 8 different kinds. I'll say this because this will have something to connect to. So within the old Chinese classical text called the I Ching, which people use for divination. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do, yes.
Yeah, great.
Yep.
So there's 8 different hexagrams in there. Sorry, trigrams. The ones. Oh no, there's the rain. Can you still hear me okay on that end?
Yes.
Great. Yeah.
It's raining, is it?
Yeah, it's raining really heavily on the roof.
Oh, well, it's good for the garden.
Totally. So there's 8 trigrams, and then the 8 trigrams by the 8 trigrams make up the 64 hexagrams, which is the I Ching. So just at the absolute core of that, the basics, there's 8 different things, and those 8 different things correspond to what you could call 7 elements, and then an 8th one, which is the combination, the culmination and the combination of all of them at once.
Okay. So what are the 7 elements?
So goes source, water, earth, wood, metal, fire, void, and then all of them at once, which is the trigram that the Chinese call heaven in that old system. And so that actually goes through the chakras too, like the source is the root, and then water's the sacral, and that's the solar plexus, wood's the heart, metal the throat, fire the third eye, void the crown, and then the 8th being the culmination of all of them is like heaven, which is all of them at once.
This is so interesting.
Yeah. So that's at the basic level, you can find energy lines which correspond to each of those. Yeah.
And just so say I was working on my throat, I'd find a metal one, or one that potentially has more of a metal energy to heal that particular part of my body.
Yeah. So you'd want to find one of the ones that. So this was all things that nobody else talks about this stuff or knows this, or sorry, I should say they do, but they don't contextualize it in this particular way. My close friend and I, like I don't know how long ago it was now, a long time ago, we discovered or decided or conceptualized that there was the Chinese system only has 5 elements, and we conceptualized and discovered that there was actually a 6th one, which was the void, and a 7th one, which was the source, and then over time discovered that they would correspond to the chakra system. So it's our own way of considering it, but it's good because you can find all those energy lines on the earth.
This is amazing that you've created
Yeah.
this whole sort of system.
Well, it's more that it was discovered, and it wasn't me too. It was somebody else. But I'm just in a fortunate position that this somebody else needs someone to talk to about it. so I get to reap all the benefits.
Well, you're the spokesperson.
Yeah.
You're the PR team.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can't remember what I put in the article about the different kinds, but I will do something on this again this year at some point. I'll make another video about it. But I still have to say that I don't have a lot of faith in a video, like a written thing or even a video, in being able to make people contact them directly. Like, it is something I got shown by someone in person, and it made it a lot easier.
Oh, okay. So if you did an explanatory video, it might not necessarily. Well, I have to tell you, with you even talking about it to me, I'm feeling a lot more confident to be able to do it. I'm going to try it. So
that's good. Yeah. And I encourage people to do that. Like, they're amazing things, and they can. Yeah. One of the things that we used to use them for is jet lag in an extreme case, and to a lesser degree when you have to drive from, say, one state to another in a day, and you drive for like 12 hours, because not only are you dealing with having to move through so much space so fast and your body not being adapted to it properly, but also you're going from one earth energy to another. So we used to find that once you get out of the car in the new place, you go and meditate on energy lines for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and it makes you feel a lot more grounded again.
how interesting. So just a final question. Can you explain, if I think I'm sitting on one, can you explain, well, everyone's different, but for what it feels like for you if you're sitting on one? What are the sensations in your body?
It's kind of like a deep feeling. You know, they're really old, and they don't belong to anyone, and they are everywhere. But the various indigenous people are the people that have had the most direct connection to them, because they were just living such an earth-centric life. So they have a sense of ancientness to them, and like a deep old feeling, and they kind of want to take you in. They want to take you within, because they're taking you into something that exists deep within your DNA and your body's memory of how it contains itself in this reality. So there's a depth to them, and a kind of an inward pull of awareness and gravity into your center.
Wow. And I guess you're utterly confident knowing you can find one as well. That's another thing for someone who's looking for them. You know, trust your intuition and be confident. Because if you're constantly doubting yourself, you're never going to find it, right?
Yeah, you have to you've got to use intuition to find these things. Yeah. And even if you're sitting on one and you don't know, then to become aware that you're sitting on one and know and feel it and experience it in the way that you're going to know you've done that, you need to be intuitive. Yeah.
So you've stopped sitting on energy lines?
Yeah. Not always.
Okay.
Like, for example, last year I went to visit my family in Victoria, and as soon as I got there, I was sitting on them for an hour, because I wanted to not be jet lagged and not be ungrounded, and then sink straight into the earth there.
And it definitely made a difference.
Huge difference, yeah. Kind of plugged me straight in.
But you've stopped doing it on, as you said, I think you said you got addicted to them at one stage. You've stopped doing it a lot.
And there's a reason for that. And it's, you know,
can you talk about that or not?
Yeah, for sure. It's a little bit disappointing on the subject of them in general. And that's because, you know, the whole 2012, December 21st, that end date thing.
Yes.
Well, by the time that came around, like, I just didn't think it was going to do anything or have any relationship to me or anything at the time. And what actually happened was that the energy lines used to have a completeness to them, and that's why that was so amazing to me, because being sick and stuff, I didn't have much strength in my body system. So when I sat on an energy line, I was getting a complete spectrum of all the energies that were available to my body in that time and space. See what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was all going in, and that felt amazing. But then what happened at that December 21st, 2012 date is they started breaking down. And since that time have been continuing to break down and getting reformed into a new version of themselves.
So does that mean they're not as strong as they once were?
Totally. That's the implication. Yeah.
Is that, I mean, it might be obvious, but is that a bad thing?
It's not a bad thing. It's the new age that people talk about, how humanity's entering into a new age and things like that. I also wasn't sure back then if that was actually true myself, because when I was younger, you know, like when I was 25 and stuff, I fully believed we were going to change and there's going to be a new spiritual age and there's going to be a golden age, and, you know, and I ended up getting older and more cynical and let all that go. But yeah, a new age is getting grounded into the earth on a DNA level, and it's my observation of it has occurred through the energy lines, because it went from I was experiencing this completeness in them that I just spoke about a minute ago, to suddenly you're going one day to do them, and it's like, what is this? And it didn't actually, my first experience of them wasn't the lack of energy, and it was the alienness of the energy in them.
Really?
Because I was like, whoa, this energy is so different. I've just finally spent my whole life trying to have some energy in my body, and now I've got this access to it, and this is so different. And even I was finding that I'd sit on one, say, that used to be a line that goes out to the island, so a wood line, and it would actually be something different and be like a fire line. So the new age shifting changed them all around. And yeah, so still to this day, that's 8 years ago, and I think there's about 4 or 5 years to go. Still to this day, they're shifting and changing, but they are substantial enough now to get benefit from them. Like, I do experience that. It's just not the same as getting a complete, something really complete, because that'll be available a few years down the track. Does that make sense?
It does, you know, and I also, or from what I've done a little bit of research, I'm certainly no expert, but even the ley lines themselves are moving.
Yeah.
So this is all related.
For sure. Yeah. See, I haven't followed stuff with the ley lines, so I don't know much about that. But this has been my observation is through this, through this process.
That's really interesting. And when you say, so obviously it's a completely different feeling, but when you say you use the terminology a more alien line, are you talking about as in extraterrestrials or foreign?
No, not at all.
Okay,
foreign. Yeah. I meant when back when it first started, I was just like, whoa, this energy line feels so expansive and different and so much less density in it, and it's so much more complex. I was like, oh wow. And that was my first contact with the energy of the new age on a DNA level through the energy lines. You know?
I just wanted to clarify that term
Yeah,
because people
sure.
will be
Yeah,
thinking, oh.
Yeah, I'm not speaking about extraterrestrials. Yeah.
I mean, could it also be that you and your body had changed as well, quite dramatically over that time period?
Well, it did, but for me, like my experience of it was, I was finally starting to land something. Like, one thing I didn't say before about chronic illness is
Mm-hmm.
it takes away your connection to the earth. That's where it gets in. It gets in between you and your connectivity to the earth and stops you getting your energy and uses it itself kind of like as a kind of pathogenic intelligence. So
That's really interesting.
I was getting beyond that for the first time in my life and getting to really fatten up, as it were, on the earth's energy and feel really good and physical. And yeah, and that's why it was such a shock and so clear to me that I was like, I had this sinking feeling of like, oh no, here we go again, in a way, because I'd finally started to get grounded, and then the earth was going into a huge change phase where everything was going to be in flux again.
Mm.
Um,
And have you tried traveling to other parts of Australia to see, to intuitively find more energy lines?
I've found them everywhere I go,
Okay.
overseas and everything, and I have no doubt that they are everywhere. They're an inherent thing to the earth itself, and they're everywhere.
That was my other question. I was about to say, obviously they're not only found in Australia.
No, yeah, they're everywhere. Yeah.
And again, you use you wherever you're traveling, and I don't know where you're traveling, but you intuitively are guided to the place when you're in searching for the energy line.
Well, it's more like with me, it's like I can find one. I can find one whenever I want. So if I'm feeling like I need it and I'm feeling lazy or whatever, I can just walk outside and find the closest one and then go meditate there and get the benefits from it. And I've done that. I did that in India and in Thailand and Malaysia when I was there like 7-8 years ago, particularly in Thailand and Malaysia because I was in quick transit, so I wanted to avoid the kind of jet lag and stuff.
So you just said, "Excuse me, I'm just going to go and sit on the ground."
Yeah, I'm gonna go
I
ground
love
myself
that.
for a while.
And for someone who, is living in a high-rise apartment, can you still connect? I know you mentioned before it was easier if you're actually on the ground, but can you connect in a high-rise or in an apartment, or if you're in a big city and you don't have that opportunity all the time to sit on the
Um,
ground?
yeah, you can. It's just harder.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely possible, but it's more difficult. What I found being in those kind of contexts, the city thing is that it's better to try and get whatever dose you can and then take it with you
Yeah.
rather than overly use your mind or your intelligence to try and grasp it from, say, the story 30 in in an apartment building.
Yeah, I've found that as well. My mind often gets in the way. The other question is, can ley lines or energy lines, can they be damaged?
About ley lines, I don't know.
Okay.
Um, in my experience, I think, yeah, because I don't know enough about them, I can't speak. But I
Sure.
do know that where I grew up was in a gold mining town, ex-gold mining town,
Hmm.
was very disturbed because of the gold mining going on.
Interesting.
But all of the energy lines remained intact in there. I never saw it before it got mined, but yeah, it didn't seem to change those. And I've gone to various places and there's always energy lines. Um, some places, the energy of the place itself is disturbing, and yeah, and that's just the way the place is. But there'll still be energy lines there that that will conduct that to you if you want to. If you want to
Yeah, that's really interesting.
sink
And
deeper in.
I guess, we all made up of energy, and potentially, or I should say, when I sit on an energy line, certain lines might resonate with you more, and me other lines, depending on our frequency or
Yeah, definitely.
resonance.
Yeah.
Have you found that with people that you've been doing it with, or the person that instructed you that doesn't want to talk about it?
Yeah, for sure. When we first discovered it, it was conceptualized that different people had their own core one for them,
Mm-hmm.
and over the years I've found that certain people like particular ones more than others because it's what they need.
This is so interesting. I'm going to go out, and it's actually raining here as well. But in the next few days, I can't wait to try this.
Yeah, cool.
So, CJ, in the essence of time, is there something else you'd like to talk to the Passion Harvest audience about?
No, I don't believe
We've
so.
covered everything. Well, I do always like to ask our guests, and since you've gone through certainly a lot of suffering and incredible differences in your life, if someone's looking to live a passionate life or looking to find freedom in some capacity, what is your advice?
My advice is that it's a remarkably challenging path to walk, but it's 100% worth it to follow whatever is true within yourself, because we only get one life. Past life conceptualizations notwithstanding, that's a peripheral concept that may or may not relate to you. But in essence, we only walk this particular path once, and we've got to make the most of it. So being courageous, coming from your truth and your heart, and living a passionate life is the only thing worth doing.
That was beautiful, CJ. Thank you so much for being on Passion Harvest.
No problem, Louisa. Thanks for having me.
It's been such an insight, and I can't wait to connect with the energy lines. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.